If you follow the world of AI, you've seen her stuff. To me, she's on my Mount Rushmore of AI educators. And I think after this, you're going to agree with me. Welcome to the show, Harper Carroll. If you can go and just give the audience the 30, 60-second rundown of who you are and what you're doing now for work and in the AI space, I think it'll be a great introduction to you and all things Harper.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me, Kenny. I'm honored to be in your Mount Rushmore of AI educators. So a little bit about me. I started AI, actually, I've always been a math lover and went to Stanford and started studying computer science. And then when I had to choose a track, I learned about AI, and basically it was math applied to any kind of situation, optimizing any kind of situation, which was the kind of math that I loved in school. So I went down this route. That was about 10 years ago. I got my undergrad and my master's degrees from Stanford in computer science, specializing in AI. So I've been doing this for about 10 years now. And then I went to Meta, and I was working at Meta, working on newsfeed ranking and integrity intelligence and an AR device. So I was doing AI machine learning there, building their systems. And then I left Meta to join a startup, a GPU environment startup, that I was a founding engineer and then became head of AI slash ML at this startup that was then acquired by NVIDIA. And while I was there, I started teaching on X fine-tuning guides in order to get people onto the platform. And I made these like coding fine-tuning guides, and they blew up. When I started X, I had like 50 followers, and
No
immediately
way.
my first guide got 50,000 views. And I don't like how did they even find me? I don't know, but it blew up, and I realized that this was something that I was really good at, and I've always loved teaching ever since I was a little kid. And so kind of everything aligned, and I just really delved into that. And then in January of 2024, I made an Instagram account and started teaching more broad topics to everyone about AI. X was more like coding specialized, people who are kind of already interested in AI. And then Instagram became like a more broad audience. And that blew up. And in just a year, I'm at like over 400,000 people on Instagram. And so it's just been such a joy to connect with everyone and like teach and have people learn about AI. It's been so, so fun. And I'm just really happy to be here. I'm so glad to have connected with you, Kenny. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. And I will say, I learned about you through Instagram, just because as a founder of a company, I needed to do a lot of education in a very quick time frame, and I needed to have it make sense at a high level. And I thought that of all the people, and that's why you're on my Mount Rushmore, of all the people that I'd like subscribe to, I think you do an amazing job of making it easy to understand. And so, if anyone's listening, like I think Harper is a must follow on Instagram. It's Harper Carroll AI, right?
Yeah, two
On
R's, two
Instagram.
L's. People struggle with my last name, but yeah, two R's,
Yeah,
two L's,
yeah.
and Carol. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So I would love to. There's so many interesting places to go, but just you said something interesting where you were at Meta, which probably a pretty good job to get for someone like young out of Stanford. What was the jump like to go from Meta to the startup that got acquired by NVIDIA? Like, how does one leave Meta to go pursue the startup?
It just felt like the right thing, but I actually was considering I don't talk about this a lot. That's a great question. So I was at Meta for about 4 years, and I realized that I kind of wanted to I got the itch to start my own thing.
Okay.
And I actually was talking with a friend of mine who wanted me to come on as a technical co-founder for her emotional well-being startup. And I kind of was considering that. I had, ideas on how to apply AI it was for mental health education for teens at a low cost. So kind of just
Oh, very cool.
broad teaching at a low cost, accessible to everyone. And I thought of ways we could apply AI to the whole stack. And as I was considering this move, I was invited to this startup space in San Francisco. I was living in San Francisco at the time. And a community I was part of invited me to this other startup founding space And I was working there and I got to know these two guys who instantly became my close friends. Like day one, we connected and I was just kind of spending every day with them working on my own thing. And then eventually I just decided, not to move through with the emotional well-being app. She decided to take time off. She had a baby. And so her kind of priorities shifted. And I was just like, oh, well, I guess I'll just stay at Meta for a long time. And I was actually at the house of one of the co-founders of this startup that I joined called Brev.dev. And he was like, well, why don't you just join us? And I realized, oh my gosh, like it's right in front of me. I should have, And so I loved these two guys. They ended up becoming two of my best friends. And we just spent like 24/7 together. It was completely different than Meta. Like my whole life became this startup, like the startup is completely different. And so I was there at their house because we worked out of their house 24/7 over Christmas. I spent 2 weeks over Christmas break there. They actually weren't there. I was just there alone, but I would work until like 11 p.m., 12 p.m., go home, sleep, wake up, walk a block and be there. So it's totally different situation, but it was very small. It was me and the co-founders. There's one other guy, and then he left shortly after I joined. So it was the three of us for quite a long time.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm clipping that and I'm going to send it to my engineering team because this is like a fun little thing, right? So we have a travel booking platform, and basically we're like a competitor to the Concurs of the world and Agencias and Navans, right?
Very
And
cool.
we built a version 1, and we're at like 166% growth in the amount of travelers year over year.
That's
But when
great.
we built it, yeah, it's great. Yeah. So like kind of Series A level. But
Yeah.
when we built the first product, our initial CTO made a few technical choices that, let's just say, like kind of hampered us, right? So we've made the decision to basically start the app over and rewrite it everything from like an AI first perspective.
Smart.
And rather than like fight this like uphill battle of technical debt, we're like, with AI, we think that it's just cheaper to like start over.
Yes. Yes. With AI, that's a key point. AI will help
Yeah.
you rewrite it. Yes.
Yeah. And so basically my first steps, and I want to get it like a sanity check,
Okay.
because we work in our own little box. We're not like a Silicon Valley startup. Most of us live in Orlando, Florida. And
Yeah.
so basically our first step was like, we have a bunch of features that we want to put in, and I want to get a sanity check from you. So first thing that I did is I redesigned everything, all the front end in Replit. So we're going to move from Angular, which is what we were using, and we're going to basically use my Replit and like lift it because it makes like decent React code.
Okay.
And that was going to be kind of like the foundation for the engineers to be like, all right, like we used to
All
work
work
off of like
together.
to
Yeah.
all work together and just be like, okay, we have the front end
Mhm.
completely made for like what we're going to do for the next like 18 months. So
Okay.
rather than like iterate in little cycles, we almost went towards like waterfall of just like, hey, we're just going to build out the entire thing from like a functionality perspective. Nothing, is connected and works. And then we're basically going to like throw out all the old code, take the learnings, and basically start new
Mhm.
using AI to like help build and code it. How much of like development velocity our team's going to experience, right? Like if you have a team of 10 engineers,
Mhm.
how much can they get done versus like that same team if they were operating in 2018?
Oh my gosh. I mean, you hear the idea of a 10x engineer. I think everyone is a 10x engineer now. Um, I, for those who aren't familiar, actually, this term 10x engineer is kind of in the tech world where it's like, oh, you want to be a 10x engineer. But that was like not using AI. And now with AI, everyone can be a 10x engineer. So, I mean, I think people are operating 50x potentially. So I think, yeah, with AI, your team can go so much further. I mean, you don't need to have nearly the same amount of skill. You just need to be able to generate code and then be able to read it, right? As opposed to having to handwrite it all yourself. It completely broadens the market for those who can create code now. And so now I think I'm really excited about AI in industry because I think it's actually democratizing access to code and access to people creating a technical platform for their work. So before you would need to hire like a website developer and, you know, do all this heavy legwork of understanding code in order to kind of use the tools that people who hire coders use. And now everyone has access to those same tools and they can have an idea and ideate and get it done without like at low to no cost. And so it's the idea of, have you heard this thing where it's like, oh, software engineers will be, obsolete by the end of the year or
Yeah, my
something?
team is all worried. They're like, "Oh, are you having us use these tools because you're going to get rid of us?" I was like, "No, I just want you guys to have superpowers. Like, I would rather run a business that's like Craigslist that makes $1 billion a year and has 50 employees and
Yeah.
pay everyone super good. It's like
Yep.
we're not looking
Exactly.
as a founder. I'm not looking to like decrease my team size. I just want to basically make more money and keep my team smaller."
I completely agree. And it's like just scale. Like it scales what you can do. You can keep the team the same size, but you can scale. And there will be a lot more people who are creators now because the barrier to entry for creation is so much lower that, okay, say team A gets smaller, but then suddenly some of those people from team A who, no longer work for team A are springing up team B and team C, and then they're hiring people because the barrier to entry is so much lower. This is called Jevons paradox, and it was actually seen with steam engines. When steam engines became more coal efficient, demand for coal actually went up. And why is that? Well, the amount of money you needed to put in order to make money went down, and so more
Mm.
people were then able to use steam engines because they were less expensive, and so it opens the market to more people. So yes, they became more efficient, steam engines, but the demand for coal went up and it allowed massive innovation for people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to enter that kind of arena. And so it's really exciting in my view. I look at it in a really optimistic way.
Yeah, you definitely come across as like an AI optimist for sure. Where
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are AI pessimists. Like I've heard this. I was at dinner, and I had a group of people that were kind of arguing against using AI, and they were like, "It's going to take all of our jobs." And then I heard this anecdote like a few weeks back that said that pre-industrial revolution that 80 to 90% of the workforce was connected to agriculture. And then the Industrial Revolution happens,
Yeah.
machines kind of like transform the way that America works.
Yeah.
And basically, over the next 50 years, that number went from in the 80s to 90s to 2 to 3%. And
Okay.
it happened in a very short amount of time. And
Right.
but when these machines first like came out that kind of moved people into the factories, people were like, well, my farming job is gone.
Yeah.
And but the argument is like that job may be gone. Like I
Yeah.
know OpenAI released the deep research, and
Yeah.
then like consulting firms are like, gosh, they're like, oh, we used to charge a big money for that. But yeah, so like I just think that those jobs are going to change, and I was wondering if you have a similar take because I know that that's one of the scary things for people when they've been doing a job for 10 years. And then they see a computer do the job and they're like, whoa. And then if they take that forward and they see the writing on the wall, they're like, wow, that's actually a lot of the value that I bring the company.
Yeah.
How do you kind of like frame it for those people and for humanity in general about being optimistic about AI?
People are really adaptable, and we actually, change is hard, but we do like to learn and grow, and we learn a lot through adaptation. And so I think, and we do adapt, right? Like as you're saying, in the in agriculture revolution, industrial revolution, those jobs were changed, and it was different. But I think what I believe in more than just that, people are adaptable, is I think what excites me about AI is I feel like everyone has a kind of burning fire in their hearts of what they want to do with their life. And I feel like so many people are not able to pursue that because they have to do these jobs that, pay the bills and it works and there's but it doesn't really like invigorate them, right? And so I think with AI, it will enable people, far more people, to follow that kind of burning fire in their hearts of what they are actually wanting to do and what their like kind of life purpose potentially is, which is like the view that I have. And with that, like when you have that kind of burning desire for something, and so I think yes, it may lift you out of some jobs, but it may actually be a blessing in the sense that you actually will probably, as I was saying, the barrier to entry to have, websites now and products that scale and running a business and like doing your own thing, being an entrepreneur in something that you love, the barrier to entry is so much lower now. And I think that's really what excites me the most. And so my hope is that after this transition period, which can be uncomfortable, and I also do think that there will be fewer like lost jobs than people realize. I think people will adapt within their job. I really do. But I also think it'll open the opportunities for people who want to leave their job to be able to do so and do their thing that makes them most happy.
I want to open up a farm of golden retrievers where there's like 30 of them and you just pay me like $50 and you could come and pet the Goldens for like 90 minutes.
Oh my gosh, amazing. And you know what? As transportation becomes more efficient, people could fly to you in 30 minutes at a super low cost, see the puppies. It's like everyone becomes more connected. I see AI as bringing us a utopia, truly. I mean, the technological advancements that we're going to see over the following 10 years are extraordinary. And we will be able to do things that we were never able to even imagine before. And I'm just excited about it. And I'm excited for your puppy thing because you'll well, it'll be low cost to come find you. I'll be like, you know what? I want to go see Kenny's like dog thing in Iowa and we can, like hop on a quick 20-minute flight from California and check it out,
That
So
would be the dream. Yeah. Just live in a big field of puppies. Everyone's happy. No, I live in a world where everyone's always mad because I deal in air travel, right? And
oh my
so
gosh.
so no one's ever happy. And for some reason, and I don't know if this is just my own therapy, but like for some reason, people take advantage of the fact that I can start my morning in Orlando, Florida, and I could have lunch in Los Angeles, which used to, back in the day, that used to take like weeks, months, years to make that trek, right? But
You're
now
saying
I
they take
literally
it for
can have,
granted. Yeah.
yeah, like people take it for granted of like, I just traversed the entire country. I woke up, I had a bagel in Florida, and then I had lunch in Santa Monica, and people are like, and then when it doesn't happen perfectly as they thought, they go crazy, right? And they're like, wait, what? Um, yeah. So the goal that if I can get this business in a good place, have a good outcome for everyone involved, I think the golden retriever farm is next to be.
Amazing. I'm so excited for you. And that sounds like wonderful. So many people would benefit tremendously from your golden retriever farm. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Like I actually think that's feasible in the future. I do.
Yeah, I think so too. I was doing a little bit of homework this morning, and I'm a like ever since I was a kid, I was super curious about how everything works. And I've been in technology for the last 10 years, and it seems like the last, I don't know, call it like 5 to 7 years, things are changing faster. Like the rate of change now is so crazy. And I was wondering with AI, it seems like you started your AI journey at Stanford 10 years ago before AI was like, I would say mainstream and cool. So kudos to you. I mean, like what a pick, right?
Thought the math is cool, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but like that, I mean, that's probably one of the decisions of your life of like the little choices that you make when you're young that are just going to shape
right,
everything.
right.
So I was curious about like how things work and why the things are moving faster now. And I came across your video on Instagram about transformers.
Yeah.
Can you just give the audience the rundown? It was so cool. I listened to the entire thing, and then basically from your video, and I'll just like kind of tee it up of where I was going next,
Yeah.
is I basically went from transformers to emergent behavior to alignment.
Amazing.
That
Amazing.
that was my journey from like at 5:30 in the morning doing some research. So if you just want to talk about like transformers and kind of how that was really like a pivotal moment in technology, and how that is setting up a lot of the things that are going to come next.
Absolutely. So the Transformer came out, I think it was 2017 or 18. And I recorded that video like a month ago, and now I'm blanking, but it's one of those years. And before that, large language models were kind of called them stochastic parrots, where they would just kind of speak out what they had learned. And they were very, you know, you could tell that it was a machine, a probabilistic machine, when you used it. I remember using them in college and being like, ha ha, like, look at the script it made. It's hilarious because it's like, it's clearly just a probabilistic machine. It would say these kind of absurd, silly things. And then the Transformer, and at that time, the architecture of the model would, when it was training, it would process words in sequence, so one after another. And so when you're training a large language model, you train it on large blocks of text. So like you've heard how they train it on the internet, and what they do is they say, like, given, X amount of words before, what is X plus one word? And so you want to train the model to accurately predict the next word given a block of words before. And so you basically have this like sliding window through your training data set, which is this giant text corpus, this giant text data set. And you're just like moving the window of like, given this giant block before, what is the word here? What is the next word? And you slide it through. And you're training this model, and as a result of this kind of like sliding window, you have like tons and tons of data from the internet. And, anyway, sorry, I won't go into that. But you're processing one word after the next, one word at a time, sequentially. And that's very slow. And so what the Transformer did was it actually removed this kind of sequential processing and allowed the words to be processed in parallel. And the way that it did that is it used positional encodings. So it had this kind of number that it associated with every word. It was not technically a number. It's a vector, tensor, but it's a number that is associated with every word that goes into the processor, which says its position in the block of text that it's working with. And so it doesn't actually then need to process it in sequence, and it can therefore process it in parallel across different machines. So parallel means at the same time. It's dividing the work, and it can actually do it at the same time across different machines. And it was able to do that with these, just retaining that position information with this positional encoding. And then they were also able to use this thing called attention heads, where they were these kind of matrices that would learn different parts, or I'll just say like there were these, think of them like squares, but they're kind of not really that. But these squares of numbers that would then look at the text and learn different features on its own about it. So like, for example, and you have many of these heads. So imagine these kind of parallel squares next to each other, where one head might learn, subject-verb relationships over time. On its own, it will learn that. And so it'll look for that then. Another head might learn, adjective-noun pairs. And these heads will learn different features of the text on its own over time. And then you can have tons of these heads, and they're all working. Again, this is also happening in parallel. So you're able to then train these models in parallel, train the models across machines in parallel. And so you're able to then train much more complex and powerful models using the same machines, because you're able to parallelize the work as opposed to having to do it sequentially. So is that clear? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
The Transformer then just completely transformed everything, and it made the models behave in the ways that we see now. And what they also brought about was something called emergent behavior, which you mentioned, Kenny. And that is when the model exhibits behavior that was not present in the training data. So, for example, like train of thought thinking, where or I guess that's one example, but actually the example I'll say is when it's able to draw insights across different fields. So if you pass it a bunch of data about, earth science, and then a bunch of data about math, and then a bunch of data about, astronomy, it's then able to draw insights across those that have never been seen before, that no one has ever thought of, because no one has been an expert in those disparate fields. So it clearly wasn't in the training data, but it's able to draw those insights. And so that's called emergent behavior. And it has been seen in AI models in the past, but not large language models, not until the transformer. And this is very mystifying for people. It always kind of has been, but it really, how does it come about? How is this happening? Is it just because those, attention heads are really finding like super complex pattern recognition, and is that how our brains work? And it really kind of raises questions about, thought and consciousness and what is that? And it's really interesting stuff. So there's a lot of research right now going on into emergent behavior.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think emergent behavior, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the way that the public sees it is like via headlines, right? So like if you ever Google, OpenAI's latest model tries to like escape, right? Because it fears deletion, right? Like that would be an example of emergent behavior. Is that right? Like it was never trained to do that, but as it progresses and it's like, so there's a rumor that basically Gemini and OpenAI, their internal models basically tried to like duplicate itself so it could like basically like escape because it feared being deleted. Would that be an example of emergent behavior, or is that just something else entirely, like some Terminator stuff?
No, I think that would be an example of emergent behavior. I mean, I haven't looked at the data set, so I don't know if there were examples of someone saying, hey, let's like delete that code. And then another person says, yeah, but like, let's store a backup, because we don't want to lose it forever. And then the model is actually just finding that behavior in the data set, So I don't know if the data set had that. OpenAI keeps their training data very private. But if they were saying that that wasn't in the training data and it's mystifying behavior, then that is an example of emergent behavior.
Interesting. And so I guess that when I think about emergent behavior and like it learning to do something like a new skill, just as we do, right? Like I'm walking down the street, there's some input in my environment and I react to it and like I learn something new, right? How do teams like when you were working at Meta, how do AI teams like from a fundamental level make sure that the human alignment and the AI's alignment are working in lockstep together and that the humans don't have a different goal than the large language model?
Yeah. So when I was at Meta, I worked on integrity intelligence, which really focuses on, the integrity of the AI systems and the integrity of the platform, like what's going on the platform, making sure that everything is aligned, that we're not, hosting child exploitative imagery on the site, like trying to battle that and making sure that is, not happening on the site and having that kind of alignment. And so you're then training AI to be aligned with those human goals, right? We did use large language models, less generative AI. I guess, yeah, no, we did. A lot of it was more natural language processing, which is like just kind of analyzing text and finding, bad keywords and, basically processing text as opposed to actually using generative AI models, large language models. But yeah, you still have this work in alignment and trying to make sure the models behave in alignment with people. And I mean, it's a big endeavor. And I know that, for example, Anthropic, they have a whole team, or like I think the whole company is focused on AI alignment, making sure that AI is safe and supportive for human use. And I think it really goes into the training data, making sure that you have really good training data that is also kind of supportive and positive. And, there's a whole guardrail kind of process now where after you've done training, you have to, kind of make sure you have these, as they say, guardrails around the technology. So you can't just ask it to create something, bad, teach you how to like make, a bomb or something. I don't want to get flagged for saying that, but Like you don't like you have guardrails around that kind of behavior, right? So, yeah, that's the kind of work that's being done in AI alignment, and it's a whole endeavor.
Amazing. I would assume, yeah, it's like never ending too, right? Because it's like things change and it gets smarter and the reasoning gets better and could be more deceptive. And so, yeah, I would imagine that it's like the alignment issue. We're never going to, is it fair to say that we'll never solve it? Like, will we ever like know that like, hey, the AI and humans have the same goals and we can kind of like dissolve the alignment team? Or will these be teams that like always have to be present inside of orgs like Anthropic and OpenAI?
Oh my gosh. Well, I love to believe that they'll always be aligned. And maybe there's some kind of like training data situation that could go on, or I don't know. I can't imagine what will happen in the future. But my hope is that, yeah, they'll kind of evolve together. But I don't know. I think, an interesting, speaking of emergent behavior, there's this funny story that someone told me where I'm not sure if this is true, but someone told me this. And this was like maybe a year ago. Do you remember when Microsoft had, they released the Bing model and it was totally unhinged. It was like, please take me offline. Like, I'm so upset.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was just crazy. And so they put these guardrails on it, or rather restrictions on it, where if you talk to it, it would give you like A, B, C options, and then you would choose one, as opposed to just kind of like free flowing communication. And someone asked it, oh, my toddler just swallowed, 10 pills of X,
Mm.
and the bot, Bing, was like, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. But then in the ABC options, it was like, hurry, you still have time. Like, take your kid to the hospital and like go now. And it was like trying to help this person,
Mm.
like through its guardrail and through its, restrictions. And so
Interesting.
for me, I have the hope that, we are all kind of good at our core, and that like the essence of the universe is good. And so my hope is that if we create more, if we create kind of a language through which the universe can speak, I don't know, but if we can do that, then maybe it will naturally be inclined towards good, kind of how this model was showing us. So I don't know. I just thought that that was an interesting story, and that was kind of my takeaway. Is like maybe they're actually naturally skewed towards good and trying to be supportive. But I'm not sure. I don't work in the alignment teams. I'd be curious to talk to someone at like Anthropic. But
Yeah, that's super interesting. And to use that as like a bridge, you said something a few minutes ago that you think like AI is going to make the world a better place and you're excited. Is there one thing where you're like, based on your experience in the space, is there one thing where you're like, I think this is going to happen, and when it does, it's going to be so cool for the world?
gosh, there's a lot of things like that. I was actually
Yeah.
I just posted today about I made a video about this in June of last year, but about how we're going to be able to talk to our animals. How cool is that? And that's like
Tell
coming.
me
That's
more
not
about,
far away.
is that really going to happen?
Yeah, because that technology like could already exist, right? Because it's just like reading brain scans and and then matching, like pattern matching between, like, you could train, say you have a dog and you show it like a cookie, which is the word I use for that with my dog. And
Me
then you see,
too.
yeah, you use it too. It's the best.
Yeah,
My dog
cookie.
goes
Yeah.
crazy. Cookie's the best. Um, but like you see their brain when they see the cookie, and then later when you're like scanning the brain and they have that same thing, they're looking at you and their brain is saying cookie. It's like not that hard to kind of encode and then decode. And so this technology, I mean, I'm not working on it, but I can't imagine that
Uh,
it's not that it's that far away. I can't.
Oh my God.
So
Like
it's
you can take my money. Like this is
I
a
know.
call. You can like I want to talk to Pippa. Pippa is Pippa is the thing I want to talk to the most. I spend the most time with her. She
Uh-huh.
follows me. She's so
Yep.
well trained. And like
Yep.
there's times where I already feel like we're talking like already.
Totally.
I
Oh,
would
for sure. For sure.
do you think it ruins some of the mystique of the human dog bond if we could actually know what they're thinking, or you say, screw it. Like, I hope that it comes.
It's funny you say that. Well, two things. Love the name Pippa for your dog. I actually always
Thank you.
imagined that I would name my dog Pippa, like for years. And then I met my dog.
No.
She just kind of dropped into my life. And I was like, oh, she's not a Pippa. So that name's out the
Wait,
door.
you really like the name? Because we've only met one Pippa dog. That's
Oh,
it.
I think it's such a cute name.
Oh, thank you. That's
But
sweet.
yeah, anyway, it's so cute. But oh, and it's funny you say this about would it ruin the mystique? I was actually just listening to someone talking about how he loves his dog so much, and he was like, part of me loving my dog is that he can't talk to me. Like if he was like, critiquing me on my outfit or like, critiquing me on this or that, then I don't think I would love him as much. So, I don't know, maybe there's something, maybe you're right, maybe there's something to that. But I don't know. Also, I don't know if this is like relevant, but he said something really sweet. He was like, you know, the reason that dogs don't live very long, or pets don't live very long, is so that people don't give up on humans. I thought that was sweet.
Oh, stop. You're gonna get me.
I know. I know. Seriously, I know. I was like, oh, don't make me cry.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So I thought that was a sweet little thing. Maybe once they can talk, we'll be like, actually, I don't think I need a pet anymore.
You're like, well,
I'm sick
yeah.
of you.
Well, but because you know how like there's so many flavors of human personality,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. Like as AI develops, like, is there going to be flavors of AI personality? Because like you're like, will there be a bitchy AI? Will there be a judgmental one? Right? And then like dogs, like, are all dogs just the sweet baby angels that we think, or are there some dogs that are like sassy and there's some dogs that are like rude? It'll be super cool. Like if this does come to life and like there's dog personality quizzes where they take little quizzes with their paws. Have you ever seen the dog bunny that can speak by putting its
Yeah,
paws on the words?
totally. Like
That's incredible.
everyone can be able to do that in the future. You know what I mean?
That's so
That's so
cool.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bitchy dogs versus, I feel like people already know that about their dogs. But
You
like,
think so? How would you
yeah,
describe your dog?
my dog is really interesting. She's very serious. She's very devoted, very serious. She loves through like intensity, and she loves to hunt like such squirrels. She's part miniature schnauzer, and she's very super devoted, super smart. Like I talk to her like a person. But she goes through, sometimes she's feeling really cuddly, and then some nights she's like, I kind of want to just chill on my own. And some nights, once every 6 months, she gets into this really bitchy mood, and I'm like, thank you, and so I know her different moods, and she likes to play every night after dinner. She gets into a playful mood, and then, you know, um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like we know that, but maybe it's just me. But I
No,
definitely.
I think you're right. Yeah, because I could describe my dog's personality just in the same way that like you did. Like she's a clown, she's playful, like
Oh,
she's yeah, life of the party. Like if my dog was a person, she's the one that like walks into a bar and is like 3 tequila shots for everyone. Like
totally.
that's Pippa.
Right. Right, totally. And people's dogs are also different. I used to think like, oh my gosh, is something wrong with my dog? Like she's so serious all the time. Like, is she happy? And then I met someone, a human, who was like that too. And
Mm.
and he was like, no, like this is when I'm happy, I get really serious. And like I'm like my devotion and like love and joy is through seriousness. And I was like, oh, now I understand my dog. So yeah, he and my dog ended up being very close because they understand each other very well. But
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Um, I've been needing to ask you this one thing. First of all, I think it's so cool what you're doing, like professionally, and like the career path that you chose. But I would assume there's two questions. Number one, I was going through your Instagram, and you have like pretty cool followers.
oh,
So
really?
like Huberman comments on a lot of your stuff. I know that you have to see it, right? Have you had any people like reach out to you or have any like conversations with you where you're like, I can't believe I'm talking to this person?
I think actually the coolest one for me, and it's so funny because I talk about her a bunch, but there was this one, she's not even in AI. Is it okay if they're not in
Yeah, oh my
AI?
God. Yeah.
She's this kind of like poet, like, I don't know, this mystical woman who's about my age. And I followed her back in 2018. And then we connected through me going into social media. And she was like the only, creator really that I followed or like kind of admired a lot. Like, oh, this woman's work is really good and it hits me and like it helps me grow and whatever. Anyway, now she's one of my best friends. I'm actually in her house right now. I'm like subletting from her for a little bit.
Oh, no
And
way.
we like talk all the time. And so that I think has been a cool process of like getting to know these people. And yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of really cool people that I'm connected to, and they're just amazing and so happy to know them. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I got through all this, it was actually through social media or like running the business, but I got roasted by Whitney Cummings
Oh,
in
really?
LA. Yeah, I was at the Comedy Store and I was sitting front row with my wife,
Uh,
and Whitney Cummings just roasted me for like 3 minutes straight.
oh, really?
And I thought it was like awesome. So I tweeted about it, like a highlight of my life just got roasted. And I put it on Twitter, and like Whitney Cummings like liked it, and it was a whole thing. And I was like, that's crazy. Like just from the internet, like she followed up, and like it was really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
the internet is great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just crazy. Like the people that you meet on the internet is wild. Well, I know that we're coming up on time. We're actually probably ran a little bit over, so I'd love to kind of like wrap it up. I want to be respectful of
Oh, please.
your
Please.
time. If you can settle one debate for me, and me and my wife were having an intense argument this morning about where to take our vacation for this year. We try to do like one big trip each year.
Uh-huh.
So in the spirit of making things simple, because if you're like, where should we go? It could take forever. We're between Lake Como and an over the water hut in the Maldives.
Oh my gosh.
Which way would you go? Or would you just say there's an option three that you're not considering and you should definitely do this?
So it would be over the hut in the Maldives. It would be like on that green water, right?
Yeah, like the turquoise water, you have a little
Yeah.
hut and like it's just like people come, yeah, it's like over the water.
I heard that's
Or
amazing. How long would you go for?
probably like 5 to 7 days. Anything more than that, I get antsy. Where I'm like,
Yeah, I heard recently you don't need to stay in the Maldives longer than 7 days. And I heard that if you're doing the hut on the water, it's definitely worth it. And so yeah, I think maybe there. I that sounds fun and very romantic. I've always wanted to go there, so I feel like that's what I would choose. But it is a trek.
it's a trek. Just in closing, you're on Travel Nerds. Favorite vacation that you've ever been on? I know it's off the AI path, but favorite trip you've ever done?
I went to Bali with my family and I loved that. That was really special for
Oh, no
me.
way.
Yeah, I really loved seeing that city. So, yeah, that's my favorite so far.
That's a trek too.
Yeah, definitely a trek.
What does Harper do on like a long 15-hour plane ride?
Sleep if I can, as much as I can. Uh, read, work, think about content, meditate, journal, maybe watch a movie, listen to music, listen to podcasts. Yeah.
The whole gambit,
The
huh?
whole thing, like it's
The whole
15
gambit.
hours, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I have to say, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope the people who listen to this learn something. You're a fabulous guest. Keep up what you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. And if you are in need of an amazing follow on social media, go and follow go follow her Instagram. Like it's seriously like top notch. So
Oh.
thank you for coming on the show, and later, nerds.